these people are the very people, they started off as the people of Kufa, their ancestors and their predecessors are the ones who turned the Hussein on themselves. They turned the Hussein. And then that's why they lament and they mourn and they beat themselves, and it was from this point onwards that the bigger issues occurred. And what's funny is that the people who call themselves the Shia of Hussein, the Shia of Ali, the party of Hussein, and the party of Ali, are the same ones that turn their backs on Hussein. Rather, we, Ahlul-Sunnah, we are the Shia of Hussein.
You say the Shia betrayed the Imam al-Husayn. Bring me a single Shia that betrayed the Imam al-Husayn.
Name a Shia, يلا تفضل.
Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuzai.
لعنة الله عليه. May Allah curse him for turning.
One second. Sulayman ibn Surad narrates in Bukhari, a donkey. He's a companion.
Your Salaf went to the grave of Imam al-Husayn, salamullah alayhi, and what did they say? They said, Ya Allah, we betrayed al-Husayn. We, the fiqh narrators of Ahlul-Sunnah, Musayyib ibn Najaba and Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, betrayed al-Husayn.
قد أفلح المؤمنون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Inshallah, you are all doing well. Today, we're going to be discussing a topic which we have discussed many times in the past. However, we're going to be discussing it again just as sort of a refresher course, and I'm also going to be showing you some new material regarding the topic. So this is the topic of the very old classic Sunni polemic. You know, there are certain Sunni polemics that just they never get old. I compare them to like those old movies from the 70s and the 80s, right? Like the original Terminator. They're really bad. They're not bad. They're just really good. They're so good that even though the quality may not be the best by today's standards, they're just classics, you know? They're classics. You have to respect the classics. In this case, we don't really respect the classics. In this case, we just clown on them for being so unoriginal. When it comes to the polemic of who killed Imam al-Husayn, one of the most ingenious polemics I've ever seen is the polemic that the Shia of Imam al-Husayn, in fact, are the people who killed Imam al-Husayn, which on its surface, even at its surface, it sounds completely ridiculous. And the reason why I think this polemic is so funny is because it exemplifies a few things that we know about the Mukhalifin and their sect. So the first of them is that they are really bad at history. They are just allergic to history books. They're terrified of primary sources, and they will do anything they can to avoid having to deal with them. And secondly is this phenomenon you'll see where the Mukhalifin, when they have an issue with their own sect, they project that issue onto us, onto our sect. So for example, if you see that there's like classism and racism within the Sunni sect, you'll see them trying to claim that the Shia sect is actually racist. If you see that they have a lot of Jewish Israeliyat influence on their hadith corpus and their tafsir, you see them accusing us out of being founded by a Jew, right? If you see them disrespecting the Sahaba, what they do is they like to project that onto us. It's like, oh yeah, those people hate the Sahaba. And so on and so forth. And there are many other examples. Those of you who encounter the Mukhalifin, argue with the Mukhalifin, and they're laymen, read the material of the Mukhalifin that they put out online and the videos that they make, you know that you're no stranger to this phenomenon. This polemic is really interesting because it's one of those polemics that just always comes up. It comes up year after year. And I remember the first time I looked into it, I was not expecting to find out it was just one of the worst polemics ever. It just backfires so easily. It is literally one of the worst polemics I have ever seen. It's up there with tahrif. Tahrif is, I don't want to get too much into that topic, but with the Sunnis, when they accuse us of tahrif, they don't know, these poor saps don't know that they have more material in their books that affirms what they're accusing us of. So when it comes to the Shia killing Imam al-Husayn, what I want to do is I want to go over this issue with you guys. I want to show you some sources. I want to clarify this issue, inshallah. The reason why we want to go over this issue is, of course, it's like, you know, Muharram just ended, but this topic will inevitably come up, you know, either next Muharram or the Muharram after or any time in between. And I really hate Shia when I see Shia laymen coming across these polemics and they just don't know how to respond. And this is one of those polemics where the Minbar guys have just completely neglected this one. I have not really seen any of the Minbar people addressing this topic. And I think it's more of you know, it's not a khutbah topic. It's more of a halaqa topic. It's one of those topics where you need the sources on hand. You need to be able to examine them critically. When it comes to this topic, usually the Mukhalifin will quote certain sources and we're going to go over them, inshallah, and I'm going to show you how to respond. Step one, when it comes to this polemic that the Shia killed Imam al-Husayn, in order to understand it, we need a quick rundown of the events leading up to Karbala, and I'm going to give that to you. So the basic narrative that the Mukhalifin have is that Imam al-Husayn, salamullah alayh, and again, I'm quoting the opinion of the Mukhalifin. This is not our opinion. The Mukhalifin have a very interesting narrative regarding Imam al-Husayn. They say that Imam al-Husayn, salamullah alayh, being the poor, ignorant man that he was, just no understanding of how politics or military or anything really works. Poor guy, when Muawiyah dies, Yazid comes to power, Hussein is pouting and he's like, no, I won't give bay'ah to Yazid. And then the Kufans start writing him letters. So poor Hussein, who is completely incapable of doing his own critical thinking, even though Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Abbas, everyone in Medina and Mecca tell him not to go. Poor Hussein is just so, he almost is incapable of thinking for himself. He is almost completely incapable of perceiving the danger. So he goes to Kufa, and the Kufans who are supposed to help him either do not show up or they kill him. And so the Sunni narrative is that, look, Hussein is just too ignorant to be held accountable for his own choices. That is literally what the narrative that you get, is that Hussein did not rise up against Yazid. Hussein did nothing wrong. Hussein just did nothing wrong, but it was the Kufans. It was the Kufans. They forced him to make that decision. And this narrative, Wallah al-Alim, is really funny, because that's what happens when you have the Yazid did nothing wrong narrative. Yazid did nothing wrong. If Yazid did nothing wrong, then you have a problem on your hands. It's like, why did Hussein leave the Jama'ah? Because we're Ahlul-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Hussein, why did he leave the Jama'ah? He left the Jama'ah and he came to Kufa with the intention of launching a rebellion. And so as a way to sort of not implicate Yazid and not implicate Banu Umayyah, and to at the same time not do ta'an of al-Husayn, because al-Husayn is a Sahabi, whether they like it or not, they have to take this strange sort of middle ground where it's like, Hussein had no idea what he was doing. Hussein was just almost like a child. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's, okay, I'm going to go to Kufa now because the Kufans invited me. Oh no, the Kufans betrayed me. Can I please go back? No, I can't go back. Okay, then he gets killed. This is literally the Sunni narrative, because the Sunnis refuse to do bara'ah of the group that killed Imam al-Husayn. They refuse to implicate Yazid and Umar ibn Sa'd and these other individuals. The question arises, it's like, okay, the Shia that invited al-Husayn to Kufa, these are the Shia, right? So the Sunnis and Mukhalifin, what they say, look, the Shia betrayed Hussein. Not only that, the Shia not only failed to help Hussein, the Shia are the ones who killed him. And this is actually something that I've seen, like Sunni laymen in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. They think they're so smart when they show up with this polemic. They're like, the Shia, the reason why they mourn over Hussein every year is because they killed him. They killed him, and now they regret that they killed him, and so they're punishing themselves for it. That's why they do metem and this sort of thing. And I'm like, Baba, if that's your logic, if mourning Hussein means we killed Hussein, by that logic, Aisha killed Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because in your books it's written with Sahih reports, it's in Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal among other sources, that Aisha, when the Prophet died, she got up and began beating herself. And so we look, you see, this is why she's beating herself, is because she killed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? According to this logic that they've come up with. When it comes to the Shia who invited Imam al-Husayn salamullah alayhi to al-Kufa, in order to understand this issue, we have to look at this we have to do a historical analysis. There is no quick and easy way to go over this topic. We have to go through this step by step. What we're going to do, inshallah, we're going to look over some of the primary sources that talk about the people who wrote to Imam al-Husayn salamullah alayhi and who asked him to come to Kufa. And we'll see, it's like when the Mukhalifin say these people are Shia, what does that really mean? The first step is, who are the people who invited Abu Abdullah to al-Kufa? I want to look at these people. I want to see who they are. I want names. I want to know what sect they belong to. So let's take a look, inshallah. So the first source that we're going to look at is Tarikh al-Tabari. Tarikh al-Tabari, all of you know this source. And as a rule of thumb, when you're dealing with the maqtal of Imam al-Husayn, the primary sources for it are going to be, for those of you who are better at English, it's going to be Tarikh al-Tabari, volume 19. It deals with the maqtal of Abu Abdullah salamullah alayhi. When we look at this report in Tarikh al-Tabari, and the full report is long, I'm not going to read the full thing. Essentially, when Muawiyah died,
Muawiyah मर गया
the Shia of Kufa, quote unquote, gathered together. And their leader was Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuzai. Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuzai, him and the Shia, they gather together and they're like, guys, Muawiyah is dead. And we are the party of Prophet's family. We are the Shia. You are his Shia and the Shia of his father. So let us decide what to do next. We need to write to al-Husayn and convince him to come to al-Kufa. I love this particular report, Tarikh al-Tabari, volume 19, page 24. I love this report because it gives us names, and the muhaqqiq, I believe this is the translator and annotator, is I.K.A. Howard, who died a few years ago. He's also the translator of Kitab al-Irshad, so he knows what he's doing. Let's take a look at the individuals who wrote these letters to Imam al-Husayn. They wrote to him in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, to al-Husayn ibn Ali from Sulayman ibn Surad, al-Musayyib ibn Najaba, and Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, and Habib ibn Mudahir, and his Shia of the believers and Muslims among Kufa, peace be upon you, and then they go on with the letter. The names given here, there are 4 individuals given here, 4 names. The first of them is Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuzai. The second of them is al-Musayyib ibn Najaba al-Fazari. The third is Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, and the final individual is Habib ibn Mudahir al-Asadi. Out of these 4 names, only one of these men joined Imam al-Husayn, salamullahi alayh. Only one of these men joined Imam al-Husayn, salamullahi alayh, and that is Habib, rahmatullahi alayh. Habib ibn Mudahir, who commanded, I believe, Imam al-Husayn's left wing during the Battle of Karbala. The other 3 men are the figures who the Mukhalifin are like, look, these are the Shia who killed Hussein. These are the men who killed al-Husayn, salamullahi alayh. We're going to analyze these names. The other important people who wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn, salamullahi alayh, Shabbah ibn Rabi'i, Hajjar ibn Abjar, Yazid ibn al-Harith ibn Yazid ibn Ruwaym, Azra ibn Qais, Amr ibn al-Hajjaj al-Zubayri, and Muhammad ibn Umayr al-Tamimi. They also wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn. Here's the kicker. So the Mukhalifin, what they do, they're like, look, the Shia of Ali, they wrote to Hussein and they betrayed him. The Shia of Hussein wrote to him and then they betrayed him. You see how evil the Shia are? You see how the Shia are enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, how they write letters to the Imams and then they betray the Imams. And it's a pretty solid polemic. At face value, it's a pretty good polemic. It's like, wow, Shia of Hussein killed Hussein. Ya subhanallah. Ya subhanallah.
Ya subhanallah. ما هو فائدة فلسطين?
Shia of a person killed a person. So the final thing that they will show you, and this is actually very clever as well, is there is a reference in Kitab al-Irshad where Imam al-Husayn says, our Shia have betrayed us. When he gets the news of Muslim ibn Aqil's death, he's like, our Shia have betrayed us. So we see this report actually comes from al-Tabari and al-Baladhi, Tarikh al-Tabari, volume 19, page 86 to 89, to analyze these names. The other important people who wrote letters, and Ansab al-Ashraf, volume 3, page 379 to 380. To quote the Arabic exactly, Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam says, أيها الناس قد خذلتنا شيعتنا وقتل مسلم وهانئ وقيس بن مسهر ويقتل إلى آخره. The Sunnis, the Mukhalifin, like, look, you see how the Shia wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn and then they betrayed Imam al-Husayn, salamullahi alayhi. Do you see how evil the Shia are? Do you see how the Shia are the ones who killed Hussein? Let's begin the refutation phase now, inshallah. Now that we've put forth the opponent's arguments, and believe you me, our opponents will never be able to quote these sources the way we do. It's not like they know how to read their own books. Wal'ayadu billah, that they would open one of their books and read them. The first step in addressing this topic. Number one, when it comes to these individuals who wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn, they belong to 3 groups. There are 3 groups of people who wrote letters to Abu Abdullah salamullahi alayhi. One group of people wrote letters to him and then did not show up to support him, nor did they fight him. The first group of people wrote letters to him, but then when he came to Iraq, they did not support him. The second group wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn, but then when Imam al-Husayn came to Iraq, they not only did not support him, they fought against him. One group called him to Iraq and then did nothing when he arrived. The second group, they called him to Iraq and then they came out and fought him. The third group, and this group is the minority, the third group of people is the group of people who wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn, who called on Imam al-Husayn to come to Iraq, to be their Imam, to guide them, to lead them, and they did show up. to support him. This third group is by far the minority, and it consists of individuals like Habib ibn Mudahar, because we see Habib wrote letters to Imam, was one of the people who wrote letters to Imam Hussain, but then he did show up and fight alongside Imam Hussain. It consists of people like Muslim ibn Awsaja, who was a Kufan. Consists of people like Nafi' ibn Hilal, who was a Kufan. Nafi' ibn Hilal, we have the report of how he shows up, how he comes out of Kufa and joins with Imam al-Husayn, Salamullah alayhi, Karbala, is recorded in the books of history, in Tabari and Baladri. You have the likes of Burayr ibn Hudayr, who's one of the Qurra of Kufa. He's one of the great Qurra of Kufa. So there is a group of people from Ahlul Kufa who did come and join Imam al-Husayn, Salamullah alayhi. This group of people, this is our Salaf al-Salih. This is our group. And I'm going to show you how we know they are our group, and the Sunnis have no right to claim them. They have no right to them at all. Between these three groups, where are the Ahlul-Sunnah? This is a really important point, because the Sunnis are always like, the Shia killed Hussein. I'm like, okay, question. Where were Ahlul-Sunnah? Where were Ahlul-Sunnah? If one of them says, we were the army of Hussein, we say you are a liar. Because the army of Hussein, there are certain things that the army of Hussein says that are completely unacceptable in the Aqidah of the Sunnis. Completely unacceptable. For example, Nafi' ibn Hilal, I believe it was Nafi' ibn Hilal, I may be incorrect. Nafi' ibn Hilal, radwanullah ta'ala alayh, he says at the battle, he says, Ana Jamali, Ana ala Dini Ali. Dini Ali is an expression of Rafidism, of the belief that Ali should have been the first Imam, which is an amazing slogan, by the way. We need to bring that back. Ana ala Dini Ali. We need to bring that back. So then someone in Yazid's army said to him, Ana ala Dini Uthman. And Nafi' radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi says to him, Bal anta ala dini shaitan. This is the religion you follow is shaitan. I follow Dini Ali, I follow Islam. You follow shaitan. You claim to be a Muslim. We ask the Ahlul-Sunnah, are any of you willing to come forward and repeat this slogan? Because you claim to be the army of Hussein, don't you? Say that anyone who follows Dini Uthman is Dini shaitan, and that you follow Dini Ali. So that's point number one. Let me give you another example. The second example of Rafidi Aqidah within the army of Imam al-Husayn is when Burayr ibn Hudayr, one of Yazid ibn Maqal, who's one of Yazid's soldiers, says to him, he says, you were always a misguided man. You were always a heretic. You believe that Ali was the Imam and that he was the Hadi, the Mahdi. He's the rightly guided one, and that Uthman was a corrupt man, and that Muawiyah used to indulge himself. Burayr says, yes, this is my Aqidah, and I will fight you over it. And he does mubahala with him, and then he kills him. Burayr radwanullah ta'ala kills Yazid ibn Maqal in a duel after they do mubahala. We ask the mukhalifin, so-called Ahlul-Sunnah, we say, which of you is willing to come forward and say, I believe in the religion that this man professes, that I believe Ali is the rightly guided Imam, and that Muawiyah and Uthman were on batil? None of them will say it. Another example is when Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, I believe it's Zuhair ibn al-Qayn or al-Hur. I believe it's Zuhair ibn al-Qayn. It's also in Tabari. It says that he put his hand on the shoulder of Aba Abdullah and he recited a poem. He said, I fight for this one. I fight for the one who is he is the Mahdi. Right? A Mahdi, when you say someone is a Mahdi, you're basically saying he's the Imam, he's the leader. Which of you believe that Imam al-Husayn is the Mahdi? Which of you believe that Imam al-Husayn is a rightly guided Imam? On the contrary, in their lists of Khulafa, we see that instead of Imam al-Husayn, who do they have? According to Ibn Taymiyyah, the Khalifa after Muawiyah is Yazid. Correct. So when this Ahlul-Sunnah, they say, we are the army of Hussein, we say, Antum kadhabun. You are not the army of Hussein. Puts them in a difficult situation. If they wish to cope and make up excuses, and they can do whatever they want. The facts are there. You cannot change history. You can try your best to lie about it, and you can try your best to restructure it and try to pull the wool over people's eyes. So now they have another option. It's like, okay, if you're not the army of Hussein, you're the army of Yazid. Okay, here's the problem with being the army of Yazid. According to Ibn Taymiyyah, the army that killed Imam al-Husayn is the Nawasib. The Sunnis, they will often tell you, their ulama are like, we are not Nawasib, but we're not like Rawafid. We're something in the middle. Okay, something in the middle. Okay, tayyib. So I see Imam al-Husayn and his army of Rawafid who didn't like Uthman versus the army of Yazid who were the Shia of Uthman and they were Nawasib. Where are you guys? Where are the Ahlul-Sunnah? Where's Ahlul-Sunnah? Where's Ahlul-Sunnah? So if you ask them, where is Ahlul-Sunnah? Where is the middle path? Where is the righteous majority, the Jama'ah? What are they going to tell you? Some of them will tell you, they say, you know what, we were neutral. I say, Baba, when it comes to being neutral, the likes of Abdullah ibn Umar and Ibn Zubayr and all these people who remain neutral, you know, what benefit were they to Abu Abdullah and his family at Karbala? Is that your aqidah? You remain neutral while the son of Rasulullah gets killed? Is this something you are proud of? You claim this is the haqq. The second option they have, they claim they were neutral. The other option they have, and this is actually the most accurate option, is they say our sect did not exist, which is true. The Ahlul-Sunnah did not exist at this time. Concept of Ahlul-Sunnah wal Jama'ah begins to emerge later in Baghdad, fought many, many years later. At this point, the sects that existed, you had the Shia, you had the Khawarij, you had Shi'at Uthman, and then other groups begin to emerge, and then later you have a group that emerges and starts calling itself Ahlul-Sunnah. So the reason why, we're starting to see one of the reasons why they like to accuse the Shia of killing Hussein is because they want to distract you from the fact that their sect their sect did not exist at the time. Their sect comes out later. Let's go over some other interesting points. I showed you earlier the list of people who wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn salamullahi alayh. The Muhadifin say, look, these are the Shia. They wrote to al-Husayn and they betrayed him and then they killed him. Right? They wrote to Hussein and then they betrayed him. Okay, may khalif. Let's look at the people who were with Imam al-Husayn salamullahi alayh. Let's look at these people. See if these people are our salaf or theirs. The first group of people that we went over who wrote to Imam al-Husayn, repeat the names for you: Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i, al-Musayyib ibn Najaba al-Fazari, Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, and Habib ibn Mudahir. The first individual on this list is Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i. Sulayman Surad al-Khuza'i is a very interesting character. Ask me why. Say, Sayf, why is Sulayman ibn Surad an interesting character? It's because he's a Sahabi. Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuza'i is a Sahabi. And there is a hadith narrated by him from the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih al-Bukhari. So if we look at al-Isti'ab fi Ma'rifat al-Ashab, Ibn Abdul Barr clearly goes over his biography and clearly talks about how he met the Prophet. And he says, وَكَانَ فِي مَنْ كَتَبَ إِلَى الْحُسَيْنِ بْنُ عَلِي رضي الله عنهما يسأله القدوم إلى الكوفة فلما قدمها ترك القتال معه. Then he goes over the rest of his story. Okay, let me get this straight. The Shia killed Hussein because the Shia wrote letters to Hussein, and then we arrived in Iraq, they didn't show up. So you're saying the Sahaba are the Shia of Hussein? I thought you guys loved the Sahaba. You're telling me this entire time you've been saying the Shia killed Hussein when in reality it was the Sahaba? So what you should be saying is the Sahaba killed Hussein, because the Sahaba wrote letters to Imam al-Hussein, and then they betrayed him. That's what you really mean to say, not the Shia of Hussein, you mean the Sahaba. The second individual, so first of all, we've shown this man as a Sahabi, and they take their hadith from him. Second individual is al-Musayyib ibn Najaba. Musayyib ibn Najaba is a figure who the Mukhalifin narrate hadith from. And I do wish Hadith TV was working right now. I could show you examples of some of the hadiths that he narrates and how he is considered reliable by the Mukhalifin. They have narrations from this man. When we look at al-Musayyib ibn Najaba, we see some really interesting facts about this man, including something that he did during the time of Imam Ali, salamullahi alayh. So we go to Tarikh al-Tabari, not volume 19. You have to go back to volume 17 for this one. On page 200 to 201, he narrates this story. I'm going to narrate this story, and you tell me if this man sounds like a Shia of Ali. In this year too, Muawiyah sent Abdullah ibn Mas'ad al-Fazari with 1,700 men to Taymah, ordering him to extract the sadaqah from the Bedouins whom he passed by, and to kill any of them who refused to deliver the sadaqah of wealth to him. Then he should go to Mecca, Medina, and Hijaz to do the same. Many of his fellow tribesmen joined him. When Ali heard about that, he sent al-Musayyib ibn Najab al-Fazari, who caught up with Ibn Mas'ada at Taymah. They fought fiercely for the whole day until sunset. Al-Musayyib charged against Ibn Mas'ada and struck him 3 times, but without intending to kill him, and saying to him, "Flee, flee." Ibn Mas'ada and most of those with him entered the castle while the remainder fled towards Syria. The Bedouins plundered the Sadaqah camels and that were with Ibn Mas'ada, and al-Musayyib, Ibn Najaba, besieged him and his men for 3 days. Then he piled firewood against the gate and hurled fire upon it until it caught alight. When those inside sensed they would be destroyed, they went aloft and appealed to al-Musayyib, "It is your own tribesmen." And he had pity on them and was reluctant that they should perish. He gave orders for the fire to be extinguished, and he said to his men, "Spies have come to me and told me that an army is approaching from Syria. Gather together in one place." And Ibn Mas'ada and his men departed by night and escaped to Syria. Abdurrahman ibn Shabib said to al-Musayyib, "Come and let us pursue them, but he forbade that he should do that. Ibn Shabib said to him, "You have cheated the commander of the faithful and played a trick regarding them." To summarize what happened here, we have this man, this so-called Shia of Ali, who Imam Ali sends to stop what is essentially a terrorist attack against his land, a raid against Iraq, against the people of Iraq. What this man does is, because these people so happen to be his relatives, he essentially lets the entire army escape, and he tricks his own army into thinking that they have reinforcements on the way. To which one of the soldiers tell him, it's like, "You have betrayed Amir al-Mu'mineen, and you have committed a trick." Ya subhanallah.
Ya subhanallah. ما هو فائدة فلسطين?
Apparently, the Mukhalifin think that our definition of Shia of Ali is basically their people, these people who claim to love Imam Ali, but for some reason think his enemies are their brothers. Whose aqidah does that sound like? Is that our aqidah or theirs? Where you have someone who's an enemy of Ali, but it's like, no, it's our Muslim brothers. We can't fight our Muslim brothers. Right? We can't, the fitna. We have to avoid fitna. That's in Musayyib ibn Najaba. The third individual is Rifa'a ibn Shaddad. Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, this individual is also very interesting. If we go to Kitab Waqat Safin by Nasr ibn Muzahim, he says the following. There's a chapter, it is on page 488, Kalam Rifa'a ibn Shaddad. وقال رفاعة بن شداد البجلي أيها الناس إنه لا يفوتننا شيء من حقنا وقد دعونا في آخر أمرنا إلى ما دعوناهم إليه في أوله وقد قبلوا من حيث لا يعقلون فإن يتم الأمر على ما نريد فبعد بلاء وقتل وإلا أثرناها جذعة وقد رجع إليه جدنا. What does this have to do with? What does this mean? During the Battle of Safin, as many of you may know, Muawiyah had his men raise the Masahif, the Qur'ans, on pikes, on spears. Then they said to Ali's army, "Let the Qur'an judge between us and you." Imam Ali salamullah alayhi wanted to continue the fight, and he had a certain group of people, the Shurtatul Khamis, his supporters who had sworn an oath to fight to the death for the sake of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi. They wanted to continue fighting, but another group within his army, like this individual here, Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, says, no, we must make peace with our Muslim brothers. This is what we wanted all along. We need peace between Ali and Muawiyah. We need unity between Ali and Muawiyah. I beg of you by Allah, whose aqidah does that sound like today? What group today do you know of that believes the war between Ali and Muawiyah was a bad thing and that there needed to be peace? And, it's literally in their name, al-Jama'ah. Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, by the way, if you go back to the Sunni books, there is a hadith narrated by him in the Sahih. It is narrated on the authority of Amr ibn al-Hamaq al-Khuza'i, and it's also in Bukhari's Tarikh al-Kabir. So this is Bukhari's Tarikh al-Kabir, as well as Sunan ibn Majah. Rifa'a ibn Shaddad narrates from my brother Amr ibn al-Hamaq al-Khuza'i. Rifa'a ibn Shaddad al-Qitbani, according to this narration. Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, someone asked, what ends up happening? So what ends up happening to these people? Because remember, there were 4 people that wrote to Imam al-Hussayn. Sulayman, Musayyib ibn Najaba, Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, Habib ibn Mudahar. Habib, we'll go over his biography tomorrow, inshallah. Inshallah, we will go over what Habib did and his loyalty to Abu Abdullah, salamullah alayh. But these other 3 men, what happened to them? Remember how Imam al-Husayn said, "Khadalatna shi'atana"? Someone says, when Imam al-Husayn says this, does he mean his actual Shia? What is he talking about when he says, "Khadalatna shi'atana"? This is very interesting. When Imam al-Husayn says this, I'll let the people who did it themselves, I'll let them explain who they are. If we go to Siyar A'lam al-Nubala by Dhahabi, in the bio of al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, it says the following, and this is recorded by Dhahabi, وَعَلَيْهِمْ Sulayman ibn Surad. So he says, وَخَافَ عُمَرْ ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas فَذَهَبَ عبد الله بن يزيد الحطمي نائب ابن الزبير وإبراهيم بن محمد إلى ابن سرد فقال إنكم أحب أهل بلدنا إلينا فلا تفجعوننا بأنفسكم ولا تنقصوا عددنا بخروجكم قفوا حتى نتهيأ. قال ابن سرد الصحابي قد خرجنا لأمر ولا نرانا إلا شافصين فسار ومعه كل مستميت ومروا بقبر الحسين سلام الله عليه فبكوا وأقاموا يوما عنده وقالوا يا رب قد خذلنا فاغفر لنا وتب علينا. So the Tawwabin, when they, their leader, Sulayman ibn Surad, they gathered together. And the story of the Tawwabin is very interesting. Is when Imam al-Husayn was killed, they apparently were filled with regret. They're like, we betrayed him. We deceived him. We did not aid him. We must redeem ourselves. So Sulayman ibn Surad said to them, he says, we must kill ourselves. The same way Bani Israel did in the Quran. That is the only way to repent. But unlike Bani Israel, we will not just stand and stab each other. We will go fight against Bani Umayyah. And so that's what they did. They assembled into an army and they went to fight Bani Umayyah at a place called Ain al-Wardah, where they were almost completely annihilated. It was basically a suicide mission. So before they went to Ain al-Wardah, they went to the grave of Imam al-Husayn salamullah alayh, and they said the following prayer. And by the way, I want to say something really interesting. The Mukhalifin have an interesting polemic where they're like, Karbala is ardu karbin wa bala. Imam al-Husayn hated this place. Rasulullah hated this land. And that the Shia are committing a bid'ah by visiting this land. I'm like, Baba, the Sahaba apparently visited this land. You claim to follow the Sahaba? Look, your Sahaba, your beloved Sahaba, who betrayed Imam al-Husayn, who killed Imam al-Husayn, your Salaf, went to the grave of Imam al-Husayn, salamullah alayh. And what did they say? They said, Ya Allah, we betrayed al-Husayn. فَاغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا. This is why they're called the Tawwabun. We betrayed al-Husayn. We, Sulayman ibn Surad al-Khuzai, the Sahabi, betrayed Husayn. I'm the one who betrayed Husayn. We, the Fiqh narrators of Ahlul-Sunnah, Musayyib ibn Najaba and Rifa'a ibn Shaddad, betrayed al-Husayn. So they went to Ain al-Wardah. Sulayman ibn Surad and Musayyib ibn Najaba were killed in the battle of Ain al-Wardah. As for Rifa'a ibn Shaddad survived and came back to Kufa, where he allied with some of the killers of Imam al-Husayn against Mukhtar. He died fighting with a group of people who, as they were fighting Mukhtar, they were crying out, Ya li Tharati Uthman. I beg of you by Allah, are these our Salaf? What indication do you have that these men were Rafida? They believed in anything that we believed in. Do you see any of them believing in Isma? Do you see any of them believing, for example, in Raja? Do you see any of them, for example, who have any indication that their aqidah matches our aqidah at all? If anything, it seems that they are the Salaf of our opponents. So the entire time they've been saying the Shia killed Imam al-Husayn, who do they mean? Our Fiqh, Sahaba, and Tabi'een killed Husayn. Let's blame it on the Shia. And you know what the clincher is? If we go back to the other report, remember I told you there were two groups of people. One group of people wrote to al-Husayn and then did not show up. The other group of people wrote to Imam al-Husayn and then what did they do? They came out and fought him. If we go back and look at that list, subhanAllah, do you know how many Fiqh narrators there are in there? You have Shaddad ibn Rib'i, who has hadith in Sunan Abi Dawood and the books of Nasa'i. You have Hajjar ibn Abjar, I believe also a reliable individual. Yazid ibn Harith ibn Ruwaym, nothing negative about him. Azra ibn Qais, I believe there's hadith about him. Amr ibn al-Hajjaj al-Zubaydi, also a good figure. And this is besides the other individuals, like Amr ibn Hurayth, the beat cop of Ibn Ziyad, the Sahabi police officer of Ibn Ziyad, who took in Muslim ibn Aqil, and the sons of al-Ash'ath, who also fought against Muslim ibn Aqil and then fought against Imam al-Husayn. I beg of you by Allah, which of these killers of Imam al-Husayn did you see us taking our hadith from? Which of them did you see us praising? Even the Tawwabun, many of the laymen Shia, unfortunately, believe the Tawwabun were among our people. We do not associate with the Tawwabun. We do not have any ahadith praising the Tawwabun. Al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, as controversial as he is, with all the criticism that is leveled against him, Al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, we at least have some material in praise of him. We have no material, as far as I know, in praise of the Tawwabun. But the Mukhalifin, they do. Mukhalifin believe the Sahaba are all good people. They believe the Sahaba are all going to Jannah. So you believe the man who wrote letters to Imam al-Husayn and then betrayed him by his own admission is going to Jannah? And you blamed it on us? But let's go back to something very, very important. We need to highlight something very important. Imam al-Husayn, as we said, he said, the Shia betrayed me. Imam al-Husayn, when he says this, what does this mean? Because we've seen those people confessing, we betrayed al-Husayn. Who are these people, though? Let me explain. When you look at early Islamic history, there's a very, very neat trick that the Mukhalifin like to play. In early Islamic history, the word Shia does not mean what it means today. The word Shia back then, in the time of Imam al-Husayn, Imam al-Hassan, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, it simply means the political party of Ali, the people who favored Ali over his opponents from Bani Umayyah. It simply means the people who favored Ali's opponents, or Ali over his opponents of Bani Umayyah. They did not takfir Muawiyah and Aisha and Ashab al-Jamal. They did not do bara'ah of these people. They're like, these people are still Muslims. But Ali was closer to the haqq than them. This point is very, very interesting because if you go over history, you go over the books of Rijal, the books of Hadith, you'll see the Mukhalifeen will say, Fulan is a Shi'i. Fulan had some Shi'ism in him. A lot of our brothers today, when they read these books, they're like, oh yeah, look, Al-Hakim was one of us. Fulan was one of us. Nisa'i was one of us. Fulan was one of us. That's not what that means. Fihi tashayyu', or he had an inclination to Shi'ism, simply means he liked Ali. It doesn't mean, for example, he believed in Rafid, he believed in Bara'ah of Ali's opponents, he believed in Isma, he believed in Raj'a, he believed in the concept of divine imamah. Because many of these early Shia, quote unquote, what did they believe in? They believed in the imamah of Abu Bakr and Umar. And I'm not the one who says this, by the way. This is said by Dhahabi in his Mizan al-I'tidal. It is also recorded, I believe, something similar is recorded by Ibn Hajar Asqalani in one of his books. And I think Ad-Dahlawi, Qaddahu, he also tried to claim, this is what he tried to say. He said the real Shia are the Ahlul-Sunnah. Because remember, Ahlul-Sunnah did not exist back then. When you don't exist back then, you have to point out who your Salaf are. Who did you evolve from? So he says the group that would become the Shia, the group that would become Ahlul-Sunnah was part of the Shia of Ali. So someone asked the question, we're like, Sayf, if this is true, where were we? I'll tell you who we were. Our group, if you want to know who we are, we were the Shurtatul Khamis. We were the Rawafid. We were the army of Imam al-Husayn. We were that minority within the Shia of Ali. When Imam al-Husayn says, Khadalatna Shi'atana, he means these people who claim to be my Shia. These people who are only politicians. They say one thing one day and then they do something else the next day. And this is by their own admission. They say we betrayed al-Husayn. On the contrary, you see Imam al-Husayn on the night before the 10th of Muharram, he says, I knew of no companions better than my companions. Which, by the way, shows that Imam al-Husayn was not a Sunni, because he did not believe the best companions were the companions of Rasulullah. He said, the best of companions are my companions, are this minority around me. These true Muslims, these Rawafid. I wish to show you one more thing, inshallah, to wrap this up. So far, have we refuted all of the points? Is everyone following? Does this make sense to everyone who's listening? I wish to show you one more thing, inshallah. I wish to show you, and I want to thank the brother who made this. There's a brother who's very kind enough to go through and compile these into one scan. And I'm severely indebted to him, Brother Kadhimi, may Allah bless him. When we go back to Tariq al-Tabari, we see a few lines that first and foremost, they really break the heart. They remind us of the sorrow of Karbala, but at the same time, they show us a very harsh reality. So when we look at Tariq al-Tabari, and these pages are not in order. So you see page 156, page 167, page 169, and page 179. We see the following. We see that during the Battle of Karbala, one of the soldiers of Yazid during the battle cries out. He blocks, during the battle, they're blocking Imam al-Husayn from trying to get to the river. So he cries out, woe upon you. Prevent him from getting to the water. Don't let his Shia get to him. Don't let his Shia get to him. Wait a minute, I thought, so this is the soldier in Yazid's army. He's one of the people killing Imam al-Husayn. I thought he was supposed to be the Shia. Turns out the Shia were trying to help Imam al-Husayn. Don't let his Shia get to him. Read another page, on page 167. Ibn Ziyad, la'natullahi alayh, when they brought in the prisoners, when they brought in the Sabaya of Bani Hashim, he ascended the minbar and he said the following, and we seek refuge in Allah from this kufr. He says, praise be to Allah who has revealed the truth and the followers of truth. He has given victory to Amir al-Mu'mineen Yazid ibn Muawiyah and his party, his Shia. He has killed the liar who is the son of a liar, al-Husayn ibn Ali, and his Shia. On page 169, 2 pages later, the messenger of Yazid comes to him and says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I bring good news of God's victory and support. Al-Husayn ibn Ali came against us with 18 men of his house and 60 of his Shia. On page 179, when al-Tabari begins listing the people who were killed alongside Imam al-Husayn, he says, when al-Husayn ibn Ali was killed, the heads of the members of his house and his Shia and supporters who were killed with him were taken to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Question: if we killed Hussein, why do we seem to be the people who were killed alongside him? In Arabic, the phrase is جعلتم القاتل جعلتم what's it called? المظلوم الظالم. جعلتم الظالم المظلوم. We killed Hussein and 60 of his Shia. We beheaded Hussein and his Shia. Alhamdulillah, in the words of Ibn Ziyad, la'natullahi alayh, Alhamdulillah who destroyed Hussein and his what? And his Shia. This is a very, very painful episode in Islamic history, but it teaches us a lesson. In Islam, many people will ask the question, and we'll wrap up with this inshallah, they say, why did these tragedies happen? Why did these tragedies happen? What's the reasoning behind it? One of the reasonings behind it, according to some of our ulama, they say is because Allah wants to reveal the truth. Sometimes this is the only way to reveal the truth. And this is shown to us in the Quran. If you look at the story of Nabi Musa alayhi wa ala nabina afdal salatu wassalam, everyone thinks Samiri is a great man. He was one of the ulama of Bani Israel. But when he took that, he did what he did. He took some of that dust from Jibreel al-Amin salamullah alayhi. He used it to create that calf. When Nabi Musa was away, this was a fitna for Bani Israel. Correct? It was a test for Bani Israel, but it exposed who the hypocrites were. It exposed who was sincere versus who wasn't sincere. Imam al-Kadhim salamullah alayhi said, when he died in prison, how could he die in such a horrible way? Poisoned in the dungeons of Harun. Imam al-Kadhim's death in that prison was the catalyst, is what exposed al-Bata'ini and his allies. These people who everyone thought were the companions of Imam al-Kadhim, the true Shia of Imam al-Kadhim, they were exposed as charlatans. Allah exposed them. And the rest of us looked at them and we knew what they really were. We knew not to take our religion from them. We knew who was on the haqq. And we knew to stay away from the batil. Likewise with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Someone asked, why did the khilafah of Rasulullah get usurped? Why did these things happen to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his Ahlul Bayt? If these things had not happened, we wouldn't have known who of the Sahaba was sincere. Imam al-Husayn salamullah alayhi, one of the wisdoms behind his tragedy, right? That Hussein, had al-Husayn, this oppression not happened to him, had this not happened, we never would have gotten to see the truth of Habib, right? We never would have gotten to see the truth of Zuhair. We never would have gotten to see Nafi' and Burair and Abis and June. We never would have seen who these people were. We never would have had their example. Al-Hur never would have gotten that chance to repent. The lessons, all the lessons of Karbala, which continue to inspire Muslims around the world today, we never would have gotten that. And we never would have known who these hypocrites were, these people who betrayed Imam al-Husayn. Now we clearly see who they are. We clearly see what aqeedah they followed. We know that aqeedah cannot possibly be the haqq. This idea that all the Sahaba were good, that the entire Ummah was doing well, and that Hussein was just a victim of his own aspirations, all of it is a lie. All of it is not true. Al-Husayn alayhi salam clearly believed in something. And I will tell you what he believed in. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi told Umar ibn al-Khattab, get off my father's pulpit and go to your father's pulpit. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi says to Muawiyah, I see no fitna greater than your rule. And I ask Allah to forgive me for not having the strength to wage jihad against you. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi, before the battle begins, in his famous sermon, what does he tell the army of Yazid? He says, am I not the son of the wasi of your prophet? Ask the Mukhalifin, which of them believe Ali is the wasi? We, alhamdulillah, نحن روافض على دين علي. نحن من اتبع المهدي ابن الوصي. نحن من اتبع الشهيد ابن بنت النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and to bless you. I hope all of you benefited from this. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We've known who these hypocrites were, ththese people who betrayed Imam al-Husayn. Now we clearly see who they are. We clearly see what aqeedah they followed. We know that aqeedah cannot possibly be the haqq. This idea that all the Sahaba were good, that the entire Ummah was doing well, and that Hussein was just a victim of his own aspirations, all of it is a lie. All of it is not true. Al-Husayn alayhi salam clearly believed in something. And I will tell you what he believed in. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi told Umar ibn al-Khattab, get off my father's pulpit and go to your father's pulpit. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi says to Muawiyah, I see no fitna greater than your rule. And I ask Allah to forgive me for not having the strength to wage jihad against you. Al-Husayn salamullah alayhi, before the battle begins, in his famous sermon, what does he tell the army of Yazid? He says, am I not the son of the wasi of your prophet? Ask the Mukhalifin, which of them believe Ali is the wasi? We, alhamdulillah, نحن روافض على دين علي. نحن من اتبع المهدي ابن الوصي. نحن من اتبع الشهيد ابن بنت النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and to bless you. I hope all of you benefited from this. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.